All right, welcome. I have Chris Dobson with me. He is running for Arlington City Council District 8. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us. All right, are you ready for your first question?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Your first question is, please introduce yourself to the voters of Arlington. How long have you lived here? What is your occupation? And what notable experiences do you have serving our community? This will be a 3-minute response.
Hey, you bet. So thank you again for having making the time and especially this new format that I think is going to really help the people of Arlington get familiar with all of the candidates. Um, I've lived here in Arlington off and on since 1979. I graduated from high school here, Arlington High, class of 97. And after that, I moved off to Fort Worth to go to college at TCU. I spent a little bit of time down in Austin getting a massage therapy license. And I moved back up to the Metroplex in 2004, moved back to Arlington in 2007, and I've been living here ever since. Um, I was a graduate of UTA in 2015 in the Kappa School of Public Administration. Um, and during that time, I started running for office here in Arlington. My first run was in 2011. I ran for mayor in 2013 and 2017. And I find that taking part in these sorts of civic engagements really brings out to you the issues that are in front of you in Arlington. You get to meet a lot of really great people that care so much about this city. And so I have to say that I would say my biggest endeavor civically has been running year after year by virtue of the fact that people keep voting for other candidates. It gives me the opportunity to come back each year. Um, I also, while I was in public administration or in grad school, helped with Arlington Proud, which was a local arts organization that's been working to increase some of the public displays of art, as well as bringing together the community to discuss some of the more historical and interesting aspects of where Arlington has been. Um, However, over the last few years, it seems like most of the things that I've proposed for Arlington are either now coming to fruition or will be here soon. And so I really, I really think that Arlington is a place that has the potential to really revolutionize and in some ways set the gold standard for how municipal governments operate in Texas, but also in college towns around the United States.
All right, thank you. Okay, this next question will be a 2-minute response. Why are you running for office?
You bet. Like I said, I've been running for office for about a decade. And when I started, it was because there weren't even a full slate of candidates. And so the people of Arlington would have uncontested races. Again, that happened this year. And so I needed to run in District 8. This year, though, I'm focusing on improving the communication between the city council and the residents by expanding the Ask Arlington app and doing year-round polling and surveying of residents about issues before we vote on them in the council. To take an instance, term limits. We haven't yet done a public survey of that to know whether or not we should put that back onto a charter amendment. The second thing I'm looking to do is professionalize the city council with both higher pay and zero perks. Right now they have access to luxury box tickets and a few other things that when totaled come out in a non-pandemic year to about $50,000 worth of benefits. And so I think the disparateness between $200 a month of pay and that level of tickets is not helpful when we start talking about ethical considerations. And the third thing that I'm running on this year is the creation of a citizens oversight of policing. I think it's incredibly important, especially with the events of the last year and our Unity Council coming forward with ways to improve equity, that no one in our city fears calling the police to engage. whether it's they're worried about something at their property, or they're seeing a public act that breaches the peace. I don't want anyone to be worried that calling the police will be dangerous. And I think having citizens on the board is the best way to do that.
Thank you. Okay, your next question. What are your top 3 priorities for stimulating small business activity and entrepreneurship in Arlington? This will be 2 minutes as well.
We're entering a very interesting time where, in some ways businesses that weren't around a few years ago are now starting to really be the growth sectors long term. When I look at what small business owners need, like I said, first is a good line of communication with the city so that there's not delays in getting permitting and different problems in establishing your business, whether that's a brick and mortar business or just being able to operate within the city. And we might look at some of the other fees associated with that when it comes to things like food trucks. I think the city, especially for our younger residents, could very productively have just a kind of training seminar to help young people understand what goes into owning businesses, what goes into operating businesses, the different kinds of informational stuff that the Small Business Administration would generally have available, but at maybe a little bit closer level to them. And then thirdly, I think we've done a good job of supporting businesses in downtown Arlington, the entertainment district, Viridian, and possibly with this new international corridor tax incremental refinancing zone. I think it might be beneficial to create some sort of incubator in those areas. And I know we have one at UTA where you can have an area to kind of sound out your ideas with other people that have, in fact, gone through the process and gain some experience from them. Mentorship is incredibly important in the early days of creating a business. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Do you feel that the current development impact fee schedule, certificate of occupancy procedures, or permitting processes should be modified? And if so, in what ways? This will be 2 minutes as well.
I would say that there is always room in a city in order to improve efficiency and these sorts of things. Some of the complaints I've seen from established businesses are more along the lines of small variances, grandfathering in, grease traps at restaurants and things like that. For younger and newer businesses, it does seem like we should simplify the process as much as possible without compromising safety for the public, of course. And so much, I think, can be done electronically that I really feel that I believe we have a one-stop center with the city of Arlington to kind of coordinate these sorts of engagements, and looking to develop that, I think, if need be any further, could be helpful. Although, I hate to say it, I don't have a lot of real specific examples of things that I would change.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. What should the city do differently, if anything, to address problems with neglected multifamily housing structures? This will be 2 minutes as well.
Okay. That neglect comes generally at the part of the owners. And I think we can look at a couple of different rules in regards to multifamily homes or multifamily homing residences that can be used to maintain the quality and character of neighborhoods. We come to a weird place where the average rent in town is now far in excess of the minimum wage. So we're going to have to take a look at the affordability of all these structures generally against the market. However, I do think these low-end properties do offer the city some ability to, if they're not profitable enough to be maintained by owners, to land bank those and start to convert them into a condominium system so that people who are living there can develop the reserve necessary to actually move into the home market as opposed to staying in a rental situation month after month. I know in my look at Arlington properties, it's difficult to make that jump from renting into home ownership across the city. But you know, in certain parts of town, it's much more difficult where home prices are, you know, $250,000 to $400,000. What housing stock we do have at a reasonable price, especially with the somewhat dilapidated conditions we do see in some multifamily housing, I think we should try as best as possible to make a transition to get those people into homes as opposed to keeping them renting.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What sort of policies might you pursue, if any, to promote social justice, equity, and inclusion in our community? This will be 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of the different ideas that I'm bringing forward are about that inclusion aspect. Better communication is not just about making sure that you click off every email you have. It's about listening to the people who actually are the city of Arlington, the residents. You know, being able to survey different parts of town individually, electronically, could really help us pinpoint issues before they become more problematic than they need to. As far as professionalizing the council, that allows far more people to get into the process of running. When you know that this job will take up a significant amount of your free time, and you're looking at the pay of $200 a month, it's difficult for most people to be able to economically make that sacrifice. And then my third one, the creation of a citizens oversight of policing, is exactly about that sort of inclusion and accountability for our residents, where they know that they can speak to every city officer in our town without fear of reprisal or having a situation spiral out of control. We have lots of programs in our town, but if the population isn't dedicated, doesn't believe there's going to be follow through, a lot of those programs become anemic through a lack of participation. Kind of like we saw in November, where a record 120,000 people or so voted in an Arlington election. And then we had the runoff race where it was down to 8,000 people. So we really need to stress that there is accountability and that inclusion matters. Thank you. I can't hear you.
We good now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right, next question. What initiatives will you pursue, if any, to address homelessness and poverty in Arlington? 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I do know that there is significant issues with more and more people kind of having the ends meet farther apart in Arlington. While there's not outright homelessness in some cases, there is, you know, couch surfing and other means to get by without being able to say, this is my location. You know, I think one of the first things we can do is to increase the wages in Arlington. Now, if that means a citywide increase or just having the city kind of set a new benchmark for wages, I think that can help push people into a little bit more comfortable situation. When we take a look at the kind of the problems that homelessness cause, it does require us to do so many other services to help people that it seems like it would be more cost effective and efficacious, actually solving the problem to address the homelessness right on the spot and try to get anybody in Arlington that is unhoused into a house, whether that's an apartment or, just even temporary accommodations. It really does have so many costs associated with it that make poverty so much more expensive than it needs to be. So again, I'm open to any policies, but I think the ones that we pursue do need to be in the best practices of the field and not just pet projects, so to speak.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What specifically will you do to build better working partnerships with the University of Texas at Arlington, Tarrant County College, or the Arlington Independent School District? This will be 2 minutes.
You bet. And I have actually been educated by all three of those institutions. And most recently, I was employed as a substitute with the AISD, where I worked over at Sam Houston before the pandemic last year. I really do value education. It's been a lifelong part of my ethos and thoughts. My first job ever was as a swim teacher for the city of Arlington. And so education is one of the few things that has absolutely zero negative side effects. So I think we can, especially in an era where we do have so many students at home homeschooling, or at least an online education, we can make sure that we cover our city with a robust Wi-Fi network that allows every person access to data. That is so important when you're doing job searches, not being limited just to the neighborhood that you're in, but actually being able to survey all of the places in Arlington that are offering employment. We look at some of the institutional problems that we're having with the city as far as turnout and voting, and I think some of that can be handled through education, making people aware of how many different aspects of their life are, in fact, local politics. I really think that we have a very strong and broad education field in Arlington. So I'm willing to work with whether it's the high school collegiate program, even UTA's continuing education program, even going into the AISD and speaking with students there. So whatever I can do.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Do you think that the City Council should take additional steps to mitigate the negative effects of tourism-based economic activity on established neighborhoods and long-term residents? This will be 2 minutes.
Okay. So we do have a number of effects from tourism that we do need to look at. With the concentration of short-term rentals in central Arlington, I do imagine that some of those neighborhoods there will probably feel it more directly than a lot of other places around the city. But we, in choosing to have been a capital for tourism, I think have really honed in on sports and entertainment. That at times, football fans after a day of tailgating, they're going to be drinking, they're going to be eating. We need to make sure that they're also being safe. As you know, we've had one of the tourists in Arlington shot in the parking lots of Cowboy Stadium. So we need to make sure that when we engage with tourism, that we're doing so in a way that the people coming here will respect Arlington. I think one of the things we should also look for is possibly drawing tourism based on other things than entertainment and amusement. I think, like I said earlier, our location, our educational breadth would really allow us to become a city that can pioneer in ways that not just college students would want to come here to experience what would generally be considered cool, But even people that would like to come to Texas, but still be able to be in a very relaxed, open, pluralistic society, could find a place in Arlington where people really are engaging in local government and finding ways to make Arlington culturally theirs. And that authenticity could go a long way to bringing tourists as well.
Thank you. Okay, last question, and this will be 3 minutes. Ready?
Okay.
What will make you a better candidate for city council than your competitors?
You know, going to have to go in a little bit different direction here. I think that my opponent in this race is an incredibly intelligent and dedicated public servant, just like I hope so many people that are engaging in this race. So I don't necessarily know that I would consider myself better. I do think that I bring a certain set of tools to the process. And the one I want to talk about here that I think does possibly set me apart from other competitors is the fact that I am doing my best to bring accountability for the people of Arlington. Over the last few years, we've had quite a bit of money going into the entertainment district, into other tax incrementing refinancing zones. And I think it started to become a detriment to our tax base. There's a very odd example this last year in that we had no Ranger season. We had basically no Cowboys season. And yet even our projection of tax revenue, sales tax revenues, were only under in the $14 to $7 million range, depending on which funds you all account for. However, we're paying $60 million a year in debt financing for the stadiums and other bond projects. So I would really like to be able to hold our council, hold them to account for these choices that they've made over the years and maybe the last decade. In 2019, looking through the campaign finance reports, I was able to find some felonies and misdemeanors that were probably not a decision maker in the election. I don't think it would have had a different result, but indicate to me that there is a widespread disregard for the basic rules of campaign finance in ways that make it feel almost aristocratic when approaching City Hall. That there are rules, but they don't apply to us, or that we can just take care of that once the cameras are off of us. And so I do want, more than anything, to find a way to make sure that every single council person is directly responsible to the people they represent. One of those ways that I've suggested doing this is to make the entire city council single member districts. But, you know, accountability, I think, is going to be the one thing that really differentiates me from other candidates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for participating. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I love starting each year with the young men of Arlington.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.